Hey everyone, D here, trying this again. We just talked for like 3 minutes thinking I had started this stream. So, hey everyone, how's your evening going? D here, ready to talk some more Daredevil Born Again with my favorite butt, of course, from Smirking Gun Reviews. It is Rob Stone.
Buenos dias, Roy Stalin. Yeah, it's awesome to be back. This is the stream that almost didn't happen and kind of keeps not happening.
No,
so
we're gonna make it go.
We'll see how this goes. Because the first time I watched this episode, but my opinion has changed, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Excellent. And of course, join us in the chat live right now, NV Warren. Oh, so good to see you, man. It has been some time. So yeah, really thrilled to jump into this episode. Yeah, well, here, I'll lead things off for us this week. I love this episode. I loved this episode. This is by far, to me, the best episode of the season, easily. It is primarily a character-driven episode. We are seeing the effects of White Tiger's death, how that is creeping in and working through Matt and pushing him to extremes. We're seeing Fisk try and work within the system and the frustrations and issues that come up with this. And of course, we get a stellar performance, in my honest opinion, by Jon Bernthal returning as the Punisher himself. Which I think was perfect. I think it was intense. I think there was a lot of intensity in this episode, including an F-bomb dropped by a kid in the first 5 minutes. And to me, a perfect reason of why you would use that term, use that word in that context. I mean, like I said, I there's nothing I could say negative really about this episode overall. And I had heard that Bernthal actually was not returning as the Punisher in the original incarnation of Born Again before they did the tweak, because he felt that the character was not being treated properly in his mind. And I think they made whatever changes they did. I'm glad they did, because he is perfect back, and I think he really does carry that intensity and that energy of somebody who is psychotic and dangerous and yet extremely focused and maybe even very clear-sighted in his own particular way. So okay, that's a lot of gushing by me. Rob, how did you think about this episode? And I'm actually really curious what your initial impressions were, if you want to say them before or after, on this episode before you saw it the second time.
Yeah, I was watching it with one of the people in the Discord, and they can attest to this. I mean, I wasn't enjoying it. I started thinking kind of about, I have been thinking kind of about some of the things that you had said about direction, like where we're going, where are the characters going, how long is it going to take to get there? And that kind of was in my head a lot. And I was watching this the first time, and I just kept going, why is this happening? What is happening? Why? I was kind of like, why is this? Like, I literally didn't see what I should have seen the first time. Because to me, it just was like, why is Matt just, why does this not feel important?
Sure.
Because to me, it just felt like we were in an episode of Daredevil Lawyer for a little while. It was just Matthew Murdock Lawyer.
Right.
It's like, and so because what I wasn't catching was the subtlety and what they've been doing all season, the both sides of this, Kingpin and Murdoch's struggle to not give in to their true natures. And so that duality has been going throughout. But when they go to Kingpin, right, all I was thinking was kind of like what you were talking about is this even what is this just therapy? Because if it is, then why doesn't he have a different therapist and then give his Matt's girlfriend a different job? So I don't know, man. Maybe I was just frustrated or something because as soon as Bernthal showed up, though, it was like, for me, it's what at the time saved the episode because I was like, finally, somebody's actually doing something, and that was what I was missing.
Yeah. Okay.
Was that nobody was doing anything. Nobody was doing anything. I'm like, why is Kingpin on the dot? Why are we watching a scene of the Kingpin just looking at a model? Why'd they have to go all the way out? First, I'll still stick to that. Why'd they have to go all the way out there to look at a model and have a speech in front of no one? If there was a crowd there and he was like, I want to show everyone what we plan to do here.
Right. No, that's a fair point.
Okay.
That is a fair point.
But it was still like, why are we out here? And it was because neither of these guys are doing what they want. They're doing it for, and for different reasons, and so I just didn't see that until like later today. And I almost didn't get a chance to watch this because the thunderstorms knocked out my power, knocked out my internet. Almost didn't make it on here because of it. Almost didn't get to watch it. I took I skimmed.
Right.
I was like skipping. Okay, this I have to see. Okay, I already know the gist of that. But then as I was watching it, I just was getting all of it. And I apologize. I got a scratch in my throat or something. But then on the second watch, man, I'm gonna take a drink of water.
Sure. No, I think this definitely changes on a second watch. I mean, even as someone who enjoyed it the first time.
Well, Bernthal killed it. And then on my second watch, well, even like I was thinking about it for a long time. And it really was like he needed this. This is that episode that we finally are going to get to something. And I guess I was also just feeling like, okay, we don't need this long to be born again. Let's get the fucking suit on. Let's start cracking skulls. And I don't usually act like that because Mr. Character and Story Guy all the time, right? But I was also thinking about how if this is all character work, great. But it better go somewhere.
Sure.
Because if then it's like, what the hell was the point of all of this? Thankfully, though, it does feel like, Fisk is definitely I feel like Fisk is still hiding, but Daredevil can't wait.
Yeah. No.
Throughout everything, this was top to bottom after the second watch, like the best episode of the season. Minus again, nothing's gonna. I'm gonna. The comic book nerd in me is always gonna find the first 10 minutes of the season like to be one of the highlights of the MCU period. So great episode.
Totally fair. Yeah, and it is definitely a more intellectual and kind of a slower burn in its own sense, but I think it really establishes kind of where it's going with that first scene where we have Hector's niece come in and she's going to claim the body, and of course you don't want to see that. Because she kind of cuts through it all of the excuses, all the suspicions, all of the kind of higher stuff like, Matt's looking for evidence and how do we get this? Again, Matt is a member of the system right now. And she kind of brings up the big challenge to him right now. It's like, it doesn't take a genius to put one and one together. He fought back. He could be identified. You let him go and he's dead. And nobody cares because he's just a person and they're the effing cops. And that was, again, that was such a perfect, beautiful place to drop your F-bomb that you are allowed, and to have it by a kid. It just, again, it makes it hits home, I think, really well. Or I think the performance in that scene was awesome. And when he is making that promise at the end, you have to believe that someone will find his killer. That is kind of like the mission for this episode, for this season. Is it going to be him? Because he's still thinking the system is going to help. And it's throughout each of these little scenes where that belief in the system gets shown to be false, and he knows that it's false.
Yeah, the writing for this episode is like really good. Really, really good. Like this, I don't even think, and I'll go, yeah, you know what? I'll even say that, like, if this episode were slipped into the Netflix series version, you wouldn't blink an eye.
Yes, I agree. It did feel the most like the old Netflix.
And the reason,
series.
well, the real reason I'm saying that is because, not just because the tone or anything like that. I mean, it took a chance, like they did in the original show, because of how quiet it was, and how, like, it didn't have to, it knew how to tell the story the way that the Netflix series did. And the first 3 episodes, and maybe this is like we're finally seeing like the show become cohesive as far as like production and everything else, and the way they did the story, and it doesn't feel like, things don't feel off. It feels like this is the first one that maybe had almost no reshoots. Yeah, and that actress, she knocked it out of the fucking park. Pardon my French. But
we're allowed one, so you can do it here in this scene.
I was 2. No, I had done it twice already.
Fucking A, man. Okay, now we're over the line.
Right. Shit. But also, I mean, I think I'm racking my brain, and I was racking my brain yesterday about it, but I think this is the first F-bomb in, like, since Disney Plus started. I don't think anybody has said it.
No. Well, there was the one that was in Guardians 3.
Oh, but I'm talking about Disney
That's
Plus
movie, but for series, yeah, I think this is the first one.
Yeah.
So good point to have it.
And I don't even think they said it in the original Netflix series. I think it might have been said, maybe, I don't even know if it was said in Jessica Jones, and that would have been the one to have it. But hey, look, this would be the great time for the comment section later, to like tell us if we're wrong, because I know that I'm gonna look it up after I'm done. I'm just not gonna do it right now. It's not that important, but it's just interesting.
Hold on, everyone.
It's just interesting because, like, to really, if they were gonna do it, this really was a powerful moment to do it. And like you said, from a kid. But it was the natural way somebody would progress. Like, look, 99% of us out there cuss like sailors. Okay, so it's silly to always pretend like in these situations somebody's not going to swear, especially in the emotion. And in her emotional state, when she was just describing all of it more and more, just heartbreaking, and then just nailing that home. It wasn't done for effect. It was just a natural word that you'd say, and Matt's reaction to it. I guess that was part of where I started my problem, was where I was like, man, he looks like he's, like, after that speech, how are you going to go into that guy's, like, and give him nothing when you're representing him after that? Shouldn't that have kick charged you? But no, it's just that the episode needed us to. It's a process.
Yeah.
He had to have every part of his life get chipped away, even to the point where he's willing to go to the Punisher. Like, that's hitting bottom. For him anyway.
No, it really is. It really is. That's kind of a perfect, especially considering he found it his way there through the gutter, literally.
Rena's in the chat.
Hey, Rena.
What's up?
Okay, so we get our first hint of our baddie. I don't know, big bad, medium bad, whatever this is going to be, and let's hold on our sneaky killer until towards the end. We could talk a little bit more because we don't really get much outside of like creepy guy in mask wandering through. But we do get Daniel partying with BB. And we could totally see why she would want to party with him because he does tend to spill secrets after a few drinks and ketamine, possibly, maybe a few things. Which again just sort of starts our kind of the Fisk side of issues starting to snowball. And basically she picks up that he's got a meeting with the Clean Green Haulers. They're going to do some recycling. They're going to try and bust the unions in a way or go around them, which is where she picks up that story to flush him out. But I don't know. I'll probably talk about Daniel a little bit more. You got any thoughts on this here on BB? I do have to say, though, speaking of BB, I do have begun to really enjoy all of the little video segments between the scenes of her interviews with the people on the street and stuff like that. I really like the feel that adds on to the background of what the community is saying behind, that's sort of framing what's going on with our heroes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be the only thing I have to add to it is that is it's always been something that comics have used. I remember when I first got into comics and opening up like Spider-Man #1 by Todd McFarlane, and the like whole first side of it was always, or Spawn would have reporters giving their news stories, or the man on the street. It's something that they do in comics a lot. So it's kind of a nice little deep cut for comic fans if you really think about it, because it's also like the new way of like getting the, showing the news, like more like social media. But I really just thought of it more as like, this is something that I see in the comics a lot, and I appreciated that, of like, it's always the feeling, the pulse of the city.
All right. Okay, and then we have, I don't know, honestly, the first couples counseling meeting that we've had that I actually felt was effective. And I guess maybe because it felt like they got into some character stuff. There was actually dealing with whatever emotions and ideas and stuff behind them. And maybe it's just because there actually started to feel to be some chemistry between Fisk and Vanessa finally. That he's not just fighting, but that when she starts telling the story of like her father and how she had to deal with things like that. And he's kind of like, I didn't know that about your father, I know all we're doing is Fisk impressions throughout this show. It's going to happen. But I don't know. I felt that there was actually some interesting stuff that started to go on there. And I think the big thing is what the counselor dropped off at the end is, without forgiveness, there can be no real healing. And I think that's another kind of idea that reverberates both with Fisk and with even Matt in his own way, considering what's really driving him. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I'm not big on the couples counseling. I just think that there might be some actual interesting stuff just between the characters, and maybe the result of that we'll touch on towards the end when we kind of wrap Fisk up. But any thoughts or things? How did this work? Are you bored also with the counseling? Did this start to kick something in with you? What?
I took one thing away from it immediately, which was as soon as they brought up the affair, I went, oh, this guy's locked up somewhere.
Well, you do know the character of the Kingpin quite well.
It just was like, oh, as soon as it's like, oh, this is some like, oh, whatever, trying to play it off like whatever. They didn't even have to react. I knew yeah, you're right. I know the character pretty well. It was like, oh, this guy's, and not like dead. I knew that too. I was like, there's no way this guy's dead either. Like, I was like, this guy's alive and he's being held somewhere. And I just didn't know we were going to get to it that fast.
Mm-hmm.
But that was what I took from it. I just immediately was like, because I'm just, I don't know. I'm wired in like that for these characters.
Sure. And I did like the little moments when they answered together. It's like, what is it politics? They're like, business. Because they both see it as the way that things actually are. That's how you call it. And then later on, when they're talking about Adam, and where is Adam? They're both at the same time. I don't know. But you can tell the counselor's like, okay, this is signaling a certain kind of something with them. And the only, again, a kind of fun and interesting thing with that is the pulling aside at the end. Like, I want to make sure that you're safe. And of course, we as the audience know, and it's nice to see it reassured that, like, yeah, my husband's capable of many things, some of them extreme, but hurting me is not one of them, which is, I'm glad that is not an issue that we kind of have to deal with. Though it's also reflected on interestingly later on.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the chemistry, because it's interesting to me that maybe that's one of the problems I've always had with this relationship, is I've never really felt the chemistry between these two. I've heard him say so many times about Vanessa. I'll do anything for Vanessa. And it's like, yeah, but why? She talked to you about a white rabbit in the snow, and that was it? I don't know.
No, it would be a nicer thing to kind of do a little thing, because it is kind of been this just like respect and love that was posed and we accepted, but we haven't seen a whole lot to kind of like show outside of the fact that, like, if you look at it the wrong way, I might, bash your head in with a car door, or, lock you up in a dungeon for an untold period of time. That's not so much love to me as obsession or possession, but call it what you will. Okay, let's move on to Leroy Bradford, who is kind of the moral quandary for Matt to tackle in with this. Now, the episode's name is Sic Semper Systema, which is pulled off of the old Latin Sic Semper Tyrannis, which is the last thing that Brutus said after he stabbed Caesar. Thus, thus always for tyrants. And it's basically like, you're going to get what's coming for you. All tyrants will be overthrown. This is the natural ending for this type of individual. So with the idea of Sic Semper Systema, we're saying thus for all systems in the same way, is that systems will have to be overthrown. And this is something that we find out that both Matt and Fisk are dealing with, is the system, whether it be the legal system, the political system, the system under which our current society operates in one form or another. And that in many ways, it's not really working. It's kind of doing a job, and maybe it's the best job of a system that can be done, but it's not really doing the job. And of course, that's first posed with Matt in that first scene is, who's going to save my, where's the justice for my uncle? Who's going to stop the guy that killed him? We got to believe that something will do it, that the system will solve the issue. Well, now we've got Leroy, who's in jail for stealing 5 boxes of fiddle faddle. And he is kind of an asshole. He is mocking Matt from the minute that he sees him. He's not asking for help. He's challenging him at every step. He's lying all the way. I didn't do it. Yeah, well, there's cameras. And there's a guy that saw you. And there's a security guard that has, that found these things on you and all of this stuff. And all of this is true. And we even get a nice kind of scene of play a Matt when he's dealing with the DA on the other side. Hey, it's Latvian Heritage Day, and you're Latvian, I can tell from your last name. You're spent in this, and this is guy, and hey, I'm just doing this. Oh, I know all these things. Very charming, wonderful scene. Knocks his 35 days all the way down to 10. Just wants his little pat on the back for making the system work for him. And he gets nothing from Leroy. Why? Because what are you going to do when the system is always against you? You get thrown in jail, well, then you miss your SSI meeting. And you know what? Now you got no food stamps. Now you're going to starve. Get tired of begging for money? You get tired of eating trash out of there? Yeah, maybe it's not the right thing to go steal something, but sometimes you just want a fucking little treat. God damn it, why not? It's just a box of fiddle faddle. They'll spend, what's the word used? They'll spend 5 times to send him to jail than they would cost to feed him. And even Matt has to kind of admit at that point, yeah, you're right. The system, which, and he even admits when he's talking to what's her name, the Sophia upstairs, and she's like, deterrence, there's reason for it. He's like, oh, that's deterrence is discredited penal discredited penal philosophy. People don't think about the consequences when they do things. I can tell you that from talking to the guy. So this to me is just, it's that perfect, and it's not sexy, and the guy's an asshole, and it's not a super clear thing, but the image that it pertains is really just a guy that's like, what the fuck, man? What am I going to do? System beats you down, and the more it beats you down, the harder it is to get back up. How does that system work for me?
Yeah, they did find they did really write a very unsympathetic character. At the same time, you just have to hear his story to then though. And that's the thing, is they let you go, okay, here's just another idiot who should, who clearly committed the crime.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't remorseful, and will probably do it again. And we're kind of just hardwired to go, screw those people.
Yes. That's the point right there. That we are culturally hardwired to determine his fate.
Yeah. And, it's all about empathy. And more than that, but like, just, it's way more than that. Like he said in this whole thing, I mean, this guy, they're going to take so much more money to like put him in jail for 10 days than it would to just go to give him his stupid probation. And will he probably break that probation? Yeah, probably. But then that's another day, another problem, and then at some point but again, when you know the person's story, you just go, it's even more heartbreaking knowing that he'll probably break probation and probably be right back where he is. And then even get more time and have no choice and lose even more. And we will have just another locked up member of society, because society is how it is. Right. Yep. We like to say it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I hate that freaking term that got so popular during COVID.
And Bill in the chat, honestly, you are right. Deliberately withholding part of the story. That's a good point, because if he had told Matt what he tells him later on, the first time of what was going on, Matt might have approached the whole situation upstairs with Sophia different. He might have been motivated to do a different part of the case. But again, that's not the story that Matt needs on this. He needs the jury to be like, look, man, I want that pat on the back. I made the system work even better, man. come on, you would have gotten 30 days. I got you down to 10. And there's the weekend. There's time you've already served. The bounce bet you're going to be out on Friday, man. It's going to be great. And to a certain point, yeah, he's right. But on the other hand, it's like, well, yeah, okay, well, so what? Thanks. Just back in the system. And the fact that the cops go ahead and eat the fiddle faddle that he stole and they don't get in trouble and he does, to him just adds the whole hopeless point of the entire exercise. It's like, it's not about people stealing. It's just about punishing the one guy that they can say.
I mean, and I like, this might just be talking about the whole thing a little bit too deeply, but like, shouldn't shoplifting basically just be, if you get caught, you get thrown out of the store and you can't come back?
Well, yeah, I mean, the
heaviness
of the punishment system that we have. We have more prisoners per capita than any nation on the planet, and we are the free country.
I'm not saying like it's like for everything, right? If somebody walks out of a store with like a couple of Blu-rays or a couple of whatever's under their arms, which is hard to get in a lot of stores anyway, you have to get that unlocked and pay for it somewhere. But like, just like, if somebody's got like runs in and grabs an orange and gets caught, you should just take the orange and kick them out the door and be like, get out of here. Or just let them have the orange. It's sorry, it's just thinking too hard about the subject.
No. I mean, there is, I think, to me, there's legitimate questions that could be raised with this because, yeah, I think we are overly punitive with our system. And there is the belief that, oh, if we just make them harsher penalties, less people will do it. And yeah, statistically, that's shown that that's not really the case for the most part. That's not why people commit crimes. They've also shown that sometimes then being put in jail will make you more of a criminal because now you have a record that you can't get a regular job with. Plus, you are now living in criminal university where you can learn all the skills that you need. And there's even, graduate and postgraduate systems, depending on how high up the ladder you want to try and climb. So I think there's a lot of legitimate questions that could be asked about that. And that's one of the reasons, just saying, and I think it's smart. You don't have to define what these better conditions are. All we're trying to say is the system as it stands isn't really working.
Yeah, it's kind of to kind of quote Andy Dufresne, right? On the outside, I was an honest man, straight as an arrow. I had to come inside of this place to become a crook.
Yeah. So now, in between all of this, we have a brief little run-in with Powell, our villainous cop, who, look, is a dirtbag, and we don't like him, and he's kind of a bad guy. But we do learn that he ain't the Punisher killer, and he didn't kill the White Tiger, and he doesn't know anybody who did. In a scene that honestly almost makes him sympathetic if you don't realize that he almost like shot Matt in the head in the apartment building. The way he's just like, my grandfather wore this badge, my dad wore it, my brothers wore it, my cousins wear it, my neighbor wears it, I got a dog that wears this badge, and I'm going to honor it, and I didn't do any of this. It's like, it's almost like, I almost thought for a moment like, oh man, he's a tough cop, but he doesn't cross the line. And I'm like, no, wait a minute, he almost shot him back in the head. No, wait a minute, that's not right. Which, again, you got to annoy Matt that this guy, the obvious target can't be the actual target. The obvious, perpetrator can't be the real perpetrator. But I don't know. I just got it kind of altered a little bit of my vision on this guy, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that.
Well, it's just, again, right? It's Matt's downward spiral. So it's brilliant that he goes after this guy hard. He's not being too subtle, about it. I mean, he just comes right out. It's like he just could. And again, somebody that we don't sympathize with. And we absolutely despise. Like, it's like we first, we got this incompetent criminal, and then we have the dirty cop, and he's just like, again, we still don't sympathize with him. We still know he's dirty and rotten and probably murdered people.
Yeah.
He just didn't kill this guy.
He didn't kill this guy. Yeah.
And I was talking about this last night. It was like, well, then who the hell have we seen that could have done it? I don't know. I don't think even that it's important. It might even be bigger that it's nobody that we'll ever find, because it could be anybody. And that's kind of the point, right? Is that not just cops and other people know about this case. There are plenty of pretty wacky people out there in the world who get things in their head, and there's not just cops that like Punisher.
Well, yeah, but I think it's also nice for the ideas that we go, look, even as bad as this guy is, these cop, assuming that our Angela's little theory in the beginning holds, and that it was a cop that killed Hector because he was the white tiger and he embarrassed them. And if it's not Powell here, then God, what is, who could that be? To me, that's just kind of like, oh, if it's not the bad guy you think it is, then it's got to be somebody even worse. And what's that going to open things up into? I like the directions it leads in. But I mean, and I think that they will have to kind of let us know, or at least that it was one of these groups of guys that did it. But I'm kind of fine. I am kind of fine with that mystery, at least for a while.
It could have been Daniel.
Yeah, but I don't think Daniel would be wearing a Punisher shirt underneath, and maybe that was just sort of an implied thing, and the person wasn't doing that, and that's just kind of like, the imagery we're given. But
or maybe he hired somebody.
Sure.
But as soon as I said it, it felt like I was like, wait a minute, this guy's I've brought up that I think he might turn into the Rose character, but I don't know. He feels too soft.
Yeah. I don't really see Daniel as going anywhere else unless they're really doing a setup for somebody who will pop up down the road. But yeah, let's get into Fisk a little bit, because Fisk is now the mayor, and he is definitely knee deep in the hoopla. I loved all of these scenes with Fisk. First, we've got the port scene where, he realizes that the big thing that he wants to do can't be done because the system doesn't allow it. He can't make the big choices. No, he can't even make the smaller choices. No, he can't start that. No, the first thing he has to do is set up a meeting to get approval for people to give feedback so that he can start it's like the kind of frustration that Vincent D'Onofrio gets to portray with Fisk during all of these is just kind of a master in someone really trying to contain things and really trying his best to do a better way than what he is. The torture that he goes through with all of these is freaking hilarious to me. And the fact they keep using you built this city on rock and roll, both with the kids and at the Latvian embassy. Not Latvian. I had to go back and re-listen. I was really excited for the moment, but no, it's Latvia, an actual country that's beneath Lithuania and Estonia over on the Russian border.
It really should have been Latveria.
It really, God, yeah. I felt like, he's like a tease. It's just a tease. Why would you do that? Bill Casey thinks that Daniel's just JD Vance. Yeah, kinda, yeah. I mean, again, this was, I think, all done, filmed and shot ahead of time, but it's kind of funny how these things come together. Let's see. Yeah, anyway, just the scene with the kids was just how the look on his face of how much he hates being there, every little moment of it. And yet the moment that he ends, he does the perfect, that's great, everyone. That's all. You guys you're wonderful. You're so talented. It's great. I have to go. Oh, then we've got more. No, that's fine. No, that was great. That was he did that so perfectly. God, I love that freaking scene so much.
Yeah, I felt his pain. I think we all did.
Yeah. But within all of this, we also get the story coming out about the meetup with the Green Hall truckers, and that's going to be busting the union with the trash collectors, which is the big problem we're seeing in the background. And to an almost Fisky going into murder mode again. And I don't know, kind of a fascinating little scene in a way, because it's like you're waiting. He feels so much like this just barely contained beast who is trying his best to do the right thing the right way, and that's just not working for him. It's not giving him the results the way that he wants. And when he gets betrayed and he is in that Fisk response of, I'm going to rip your head off, the one thing that he is not expecting in any of this, which is, I think, does take him by surprise, is the sycophancy. I did it. I'm horrible. You're right. You should totally kill me, but I'll still continue to vote for you and do all the things I think you're the greatest thing in the world. And I am the worst piece of shit that's ever existed on the planet. And you have every right to kind of which again is just, it's just the look at the face he put. He's just like, I did this, and in all honesty, I think there was some ketamine and so on. I think you should stop now. I think you should. You've made your point, which is basically that he realizes that however mistake that's been made, and this is somebody who will realize the depths of his mistakes and the potential cost if he does it again, or definite cost if he does it again. That this type of loyalty, someone that will take the fall and still go to bat for you, that's a certain power. And that is someone to have around. And we don't really have enough toadies in the Marvel universe, I think. So I'm kind of really curious about where this could end up. But thoughts?
Not really, because I mean, you've pretty much said it pretty well. I just thought that when they were on the dock, like, she was basically like Colin Robinson to Kingpin. Like, it was just like,
no,
energy vampire. Like, everything she was saying would have just been like just sucked all the energy out of him. Like, it's like, yeah, this is why shit don't get done.
Yeah.
You know? But the whole sick fan thing, I mean, it's also the chat. Bill said it already. I mean, this is, like it's on another level. But I also, there is another thing, I guess, and that is the whole, like what you talked about, but like his father talking about forgiveness and things like that's a theme also in this, like with the therapy, and how his father would have just. I mean, I'm reading a book right now that takes place in the early 1900s with the Fisk, and the past Fisk people were bad news. So it's almost like Kingpin's, this is, he's really trying. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, except he's not like he is and he isn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the whole thing with the guy at the end is, like,
yeah,
like it's the one, it's like, I can only do so much, and doing that is, I don't want to spoil that, but that's where my mind went. So.
Sure. You're starting to get a little bit of that audio kick that was happening the other day. Do you want to jump out and jump back in and see if that resets your audio video stream? Right. I know StreamYard is kind of weird, folks. With sometimes if you're on for too long, it will start kind of like buffering your stream midstream, and it makes it really difficult. Depending on your speed, especially if you're having internet issues in areas, it will really just sort of start a cascading effect. But we have found that typically jumping back out and jumping back in will go ahead and fix that. So let's bring Rob back, and yeah, see, you're looking smoother. You're looking smoother already there, Rob.
Do I sound all right?
No, yeah, you sound great.
Okay.
I'm going to say that, and then he's going to freeze, folks. So no, it should all be good now. All right, well, we'll definitely jump into our final fist scene, but we got to jump to where everybody wants us to go, and probably has been waiting rather patiently for the past 45 minutes for us to finally get to, and that's Jon Bernthal's return as Frank Castle. Obviously, we've got Matt looking for a nice little detective scene, looking for the bullet casing, realizing that there's a slight little hill right where the murder scene happened, and that anything down could possibly go right into this grate where he finds the bullet casing with the Punisher logo. And I have to say, well, I didn't feel that the first couple episodes made me feel like this was a world where these people lived, where these heroes were, and stuff was happening. This episode, for some reason, everything felt perfectly natural. Maybe it's the way that Matt was moving. There was a certain kind of fluidity to it. There was a certain comfort. I don't really, again, I can't put my finger on it. But him going down this area, this part of the city, and then the bottom, and then, in this basement and these areas, and that's where Frank Castle is holed up. That all felt perfectly right. Like, yeah. And Matt's known where he's at. They don't obviously hang out. It's been a while. I did appreciate Matt. I did appreciate Matt letting himself be known as he walked in the door. But yeah, to me, this was pitch perfect. I really have almost no notes. So why don't you dive into this first? Otherwise, I'll just gush for another 10 minutes.
Well, you said what was it? I can probably tell you what it was. It's the fact that they did they were doing what the original show did a lot.
Yeah,
just follow something for a while, letting us see the process and everything. And sometimes those process, that ended in fights, but it was him exploring his city the way he does, the natural way, the using of his powers without even, we don't need to see him using his powers, what he's doing.
Yeah.
So anybody that has been watching this show or this and following the character and how he operates, Everything was it felt like that because it was feeling natural. Everything was right. And that's the thing, is like you're probably used to things not feeling right when you watch one of these things. And then when it actually does right, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? What's this feeling? Oh my God, it's that, this is a perfect episode. We're fine. We are, doing something good here. And like, that's why it's like the best episode of the season. It's like they finally hit it here. And yeah, I loved every part of this. And Jon Bernthal's Punisher is Frank Castle, in my opinion. They even like the last, before one of the most recent Punishers, they drew at the.
No. They always manage to time it like right at the good spot when they're going to do the buffering and the freezing. All right. Well, let's give we'll give Rob a minute, see if he is able to pop back in. But okay. Do we have him? Do we? There we go.
Jeez Louise, man. When did I drop out?
You were just about to start saying why, and then you froze.
Why?
You were bleeding off your why Bernthal is like the perfect Punisher, and then you were saying, yeah, they just did a comic where, and then you froze.
They were drawing him as the Punisher. They were using his version of it as the Punisher. And what I like about this is that, again, I'm gonna go back to comics.
Mm-hmm.
Is that scenes like this in a comic are very common, of Daredevil doing his thing and then Spider-Man showing up for a couple of pages being like, hey man, we got to talk. Or it's to show that the city is alive with heroes or villains. And so even if this is it, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree.
I want him to, it's Daredevil, not Punisher. And it's, you dangle the treat in front of us, and we have it and we want more. Especially when it's Bernthal and he's fantastic, and he owns this character like Ryan Reynolds owns Deadpool, like Hugh Jackman owns Wolverine, and all the big ones. Bernthal is the Punisher, and you needed him to be the guy who breaks Matt down into tears.
Oh yeah,
because he's there, like, he hates that Frank is right on some level. Frank is messed up. Doesn't mean Frank is wrong. And who else but like also somebody who's lost why he went this way. And well, I think Frank has always been the guy who's like, you want to, like, you want to hurt people. You want to, like, you want permission to do like I do. And he does that in the comics all the time. He's always wrong because he's so into his own thing that he can't see anything else. So, like, as far as the way somebody else does things, doesn't mean though that he's wrong here. It's just he's got him nailed. And it's like, this could have been an awesome fight. This would have been unbelievable. I wanted it last night. I did. Anyway, I really wish they had fought. Again.
They would have made an awesome one. They could have done, yeah.
Again, second viewing, I know that this is better because that's not the point of the episode, is to suddenly have a fight. And when people complain about, like, why aren't there more action scenes in a comic or a movie or whatever, it's because characters always if the story doesn't need it, you don't put it in there just to be like, actual good storytelling will have the action happen when it's absolutely necessary. And
And if you don't have an emotional tie to the characters and their journey, an action sequence is completely empty. It's a weird thing.
And this breakdown of this character and having to come to Frank just to be the one to wake him up.
Mm-hmm.
But like over the period of like listening and having and denial and deflection, try to make him feel bad about himself. You know, look at you, look at how shitty you're feeling and everything. Like, and Frank can just take it because that's just, it doesn't mean anything to him. He, you know, like,
well, he susses Matt out immediately when he walks in. It's like, yeah, you know, you could be helping and serve. It's like, oh, served. I served. You served. Thank you so much for going out. Thank you for your service. Really mocking that whole kind of idea. You know, it's like, you're not wasting your time coming down here asking me to go and help out. What are you down here for? What are you wasting your time down here for? Susses him out that of what he's looking for immediately. And the way that he really works that whole, the whole foggy emotion where he's not even like, you can't even say his name, can you? You can't even bring his name to the lips. You're wallowing in guilt. And he's right. I live in guilt. I can see it anywhere. And that moment when he is just like, does he talk to you? Do you hear him? Do you see him? Because my kid talks to me. You know what I hear? You know what he says to me? Go get him, Daddy. Go get him. Did you go get him? Go get those people. Make sure that they pay. I was like, man, if this isn't the Punisher right here, if this isn't that drive underneath, but you know that's exactly what's going on with Matt. You know that he's seeing him and he's waving, and as good as Foggy is, it is the guilt of that loss, and what is he going to do about it? Fucking Deadshot's got
Bullseye.
Bullseye, thank you. I'm like, God, it's not coming in. Bullseye's got life. Oh yeah? What did Foggy get? Foggy get life? I mean, it's just, and you're right. If we never see him again in this series, I know he's got his own special project that's coming up with Marvel, and that's great. I hope that they do great. But if we don't see him anymore in this, I don't care. He did perfectly what he needed to do. And if we do see him again, I've got a certain level of confidence now that that's going to be pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah. So I'm just, it's a very satisfying scene. It hits the character moments. It progresses the story in the right way and I just, because you could, you know, like you could have done Spider-Man. I mean, technically they can do whatever, right?
Sure.
But it needed to be Frank. And not just budgetary.
No, because it's a visceral thing. And he hits him with, I mean, the line is, when it's the end, it's going to eat at you until you do something about it. And that, again, it connects so much with the first thing that Angela said at that he said to Angela at the beginning. You got to believe that somebody is going to find out, is going to find the killer. And now you have Frank going, yeah, well, it's going to eat at you until you do something about it. Because you're the only one who cares. The system doesn't. Talk about a couple of failures of the system right there. Yeah. So, fucking Bernthal, man.
Yeah.
All right. So we get our final kind of Fisk and Vanessa scene. And they said something really interesting. Well, we get the nice little moment where she talks about dad, and he talks about his dad, and like, he taught me a lot of things. Forgiveness wasn't one of them. Though I'm thinking back to what I've seen with Fisk and his father, and I'm just like, I think you picked up more things than what your father taught you. But they bring up the fact that the psychiatrist had the counselor had held Vanessa back, and I love how Fisk is like, well, I'm assuming that she asked if you were safe. It's only a prudent thing that that any counselor would ask. And she says, I do feel safe with you, but should I? And that grabbed me really interesting because I don't think that she wants to feel unsafe with Fisk, but I think what we've seen throughout the episode is a contained Fisk. Was it Buck? Whoever the one side guy is that found the counselor and so on and set them up. And I don't know, maybe he's got some little side story, but he was talking about the bosses and that we can't get things settled until they're either dead or we figured something out with them. And I almost feel like we've got the concern from everybody, from Vanessa, from the people, from stuff out, is has Fisk lost his edge? And that's why when I was asking, like, why is he trying to be mayor? In some ways, I think I'm butting up to the same question it feels like the characters were asking here. And Vanessa, and specifically, she shouldn't ever feel afraid or that her life is in danger because of Fisk. And yet, when she says that, it makes me think like, have you lost your edge? She's changed, and he's even acknowledged you're something even more magnificent than you were before. Again, we don't see a lot of that, but we'll take Fisk at his word. I think everybody is doubting, does Fisk have it in him? Which is why I think we get our final two scenes together really interesting, where we see that Matt is now going, maybe I do have to fight against the system. Maybe I do have to go back to it. Maybe I am the only person that can try and find this. And then we have Fisk going down to the creepy fucking basement land where he's got his white rabbit painting with the blood. Is that from the old lady when Bullseye got the painting back from him? Is that from that, or is this maybe like a new blood stain on the painting? I'm curious. But down there, he's indulging pasta and sausages and red wine as he's watching his art and torturing a guy. So it's like, oh no, Fisk isn't dead. He hasn't lost his edge. It's contained. But to what end is where I ask. And I won't be getting an answer because he's out again. We need better internet service across the nation, folks, is what we're trying to say. I'm going to blame this on Doge because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. God, I really wanted to hear what he thought on that. We'll get him when he comes back. But that's my basic premise on kind of the whole Fisk thing of where we're at. While we keep seeing him trying to do the right thing, trying to sit with the kids and do that, trying to go through the steps in order to get his port project going, trying to be the mayor and do mayor things and put his criminal stuff aside. I think we have our final scene there to let us know that part of the kingpin is still there, even if Wilson Fisk is Mayor Fisk is suppressing him. But I think what we are going to see within all of this is that sort of explode. Because much like Matt can't keep the devil down anymore when he's seeing so much injustice, I don't think Fisk can keep it down when he's not being allowed to do the things that he wants. And maybe that's where the two of those kind of like are butting against the system in a way. Daredevil to me is kind of that perfect blend for Matt the lawyer. Is Matt uses the legal system to try and get justice done. And when the legal systems fails, then Daredevil is there to get justice done another way. And I think with Fisk, where we have here is Fisk is trying to save his city. And he's trying now to do it the right way. As a leader, inspiring, guiding things, getting things done. And I think his buck against the system is going to be, but the system is holding me back from getting work done in a timely manner. Everything is taking too long. And therefore, I'm going to use other means in order to get the job done. And so they each cross the lines for their own particular reasons. Yeah, we can see Rob in the chat here. His internet had crashed. We had a concern about this earlier when we started this particular stream. We almost delayed this, but it seemed to have come back and it seemed to have stabilized. So I'm really sorry. I'm actually more sorry because I don't know if they will only allow audio with StreamYard. I think it's just a video connection. I've never actually tried to do anything that way. So I'm unfamiliar if we can. But I did. I'm going to see if Rob can get back. The reason I really wanted him back here is also because of his comic knowledge. He's going to be able to touch on our final subject a little bit. All right, he's back. Hold on. Hey, Rob. I was talking for a while. I think I still entertained our folks.
I was listening.
Oh, okay. Good.
I never left. All right. I only left in actual.
Right. We couldn't see you, but you could hear us. So that's good.
A beat. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about Muse before I disappear again.
Yeah.
So gotta be honest. Mr. Comic Book Guy didn't remember this guy.
I think he's a new character.
I have the issue where he died. It's in a long box somewhere. It's in a long box in storage. So before the next episode, I'm gonna go and get my books because there's the last arc, and now I can see it in my head because it was very artsy. Created by Charles Soule and Ron Garney. Charles Soule is one of the premier writers right now. He's been doing Star Wars comics, Darth Vader. He did the 3 novels for the High Republic.
Okay.
He's done books like 8 Billion Genies and Curse Words, and now he's got a book called Lucky Devils. This guy is created this. It fits this guy's MO of making comics. This feels like a Charles Soule character. But I have some bad news for you, man. Some really bad news.
What happened?
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Isn't coming back. But Inhumans are, because Muse is an Inhuman.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fine, but you don't have to say that stuff about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They can still come back. Coulson lives. # Coulson lives.
I read Inhuman and I went, oh man, the Inhumans are back here, but we can't get Coulson.
Look.
So basically, though, this guy,
Anson Mount's doing a better job on Star Trek anyway. He doesn't need to come back. He's good.
He's got super strength, but also he's hard to find. So it's perfect for Daredevil.
Okay.
He's like kryptonite almost, like he's imperceptible. So he's not going to be able to read the heartbeat and things like that. There's going to be more to it. He's a serial killer too, and he likes to turn people into art, kind of like Hannibal. Mass murders, abductions, torture, and street graffiti.
Oh, we keep seeing the graffiti all over the walls. So is that what we're tying into to him potentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
And off of the wiki, right? His body acts like a vortex, which can absorb any kind of sensory information that surrounds him. So that's why he's hard to track.
All right.
And that
I'm curious how they'll
speed.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if they're going to take all of it or maybe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm curious how they'll adapt, if they'll pick and choose, but they've been leaning obviously into more mystical, magical things aka the magical amulet, that I have gone off about. But that does tend to imply that they might have a bit more of these supernatural elements to the character, which would be cool.
Yeah. So I don't know how they're gonna do this. Right now, it doesn't really feel like it fits, but I like that they're laying the groundwork, which is also another comic book thing. Of somewhere in a panel, you'll get something happening, and you're like, "Why is that here?" In fact, Invincible does it all the time. If you watch Invincible, and there'll be a scene of like, "What the hell is this for?" And then all of a sudden, it just shows up. That's because Kirkman is doing he's basic in that he's doing everything that ever happens in comics. And so the way that they do all this, more and more, this really is feeling like not just a great series, but a great representation of comics.
Yeah. I'm enjoying their composition. I'm hoping they're going to build on that, because I think the feel of the old Netflix show with more capacity to it, I think would be the perfect kind of blend. So I was looking here, Bill Casey in the chat mentioning all the couple therapy scenes and them making a point that Fisk wouldn't harm Vanessa makes me think that he actually is going to harm Vanessa. I mean, I read it more of an underlying, but I don't know, Bill. I think maybe you might be guessing a potential scene, because I could almost see Fisk finally being set free with his anger and all of that stuff, coming to a point where it could almost harm Vanessa, and that turning Vanessa on. Not necessarily in just like a sexual way or anything like that, but more of like, this is the Wilson I want to see. Where it could almost get to that point, but it doesn't, because I actually don't think that he will, but I think that there might be something. Just when you say that, that feels like a scene where they could definitely do it, where he is pushed to the point where he could almost harm her. And that's when she's like, there's Wilson. Thank you. But that's my guess.
It's one way to go. Another way to go to me would be that something he does causes her death, which takes the top off.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't think, again, this is another comic thing, but historically, she's left him or she has died because of him. Not literally, not because he did it, but because of him.
Right.
In different iterations, they've restarted this kind of story before. There's several volumes. I think we're on volume maybe 5 or 6 of Daredevil, so there's been several versions of Vanessa, but I don't think any of them, and I'm probably wrong. At some point he probably did backhand her or something, a la like Hank Pym to Janet. But
I mean, I like the fact that he's not, that is the one kind of line that he won't cross. I mean, to me, it just makes the character kind of more interesting in that sense. I hope they don't kill her, only because I'm getting tired of them killing characters off. And I like the great thing about comics and these Marvels is it's a living world where people can go from place to place and return and come back. And it gets me very upset when they take like great characters and in some sideshow that honestly doesn't even exist in reality, kill off major characters or give people like ridiculous overpowered powers. Don't do that. Bad choices. But I think that pretty much kind of covers everything for tonight. Anything you want to add on before we get out of here, Rob?
No, I'm afraid if I say too much, it'll cut me off.
Fair enough. Well, since we've angered the internet gods enough, thank you, everybody who joined us in the chat. Bill Casey, as always. Reno, really appreciate you guys jumping in. Mama Bear chopped in for a little while. and NV Warren. So excited to see you, NV. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you catch the next one. Please, if you're new, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button. I should probably say this at the top of the show and not the end, but you know, we appreciate it if you stuck around all this time. We'll be back next week on Wednesday. Now, next week's there's double episode. They're dropping the next 2 episodes back to back. So we'll have 2 episodes to cover next week. And then we will be doing Severance maybe tomorrow. We might be dropping Severance as a late drop tomorrow night.
I've already set it up. I set it up like a day or so ago to be a live stream around 9:30.
Perfect. So around 7:30 Pacific, 9:30 Central, we will be talking the season finale of Severance over on Smirking Gun Reviews. Any other last little tidbits of things that are coming on your channel there, Rob?
I'm working on a comic video set during World War II because I wanted to see Marvel heroes killing Nazis, because that's what you do to Nazis.
Yeah. Always punch Nazis.
And I'm just trying to find the right tone.
Okay. You're doing good work there, man. You're doing good work. Make it right. But yeah, otherwise we will catch you all next week. Same Daredevil time, same Daredevil station, right here on Dee's Reviews. I'm going to put together an outro. Rob's got a great one, and I'm going to do one, I think, myself. We'll put one together. We'll catch you all next time. Thanks so much.
Right.
Take it easy.